Welcome to another episode of the Dixre Podcast. In this episode, I am Pablo, a data scientist who has over 5 years experience in data science. We'll be talking about the opportunities in data science, the learning curve, and some of the challenges you could experience while diving into the field. I hope you learn a lot. If you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section. Most importantly, like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hi, welcome, Pablo. It's nice to have you around.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think it would be nice if you briefly introduce yourself and maybe tell us a bit about how you got into data science.
All right. So first off, I'd like to first introduce myself because I know that a lot of people often ask, is my name actually Pablo?
Okay.
So my government name is Peter.
Okay.
Yeah. Peter Okukog is my name.
Nice.
My tech name is Pablo, and
Nice.
I created that as what will I call it, like a personality that I wanted for tech.
Wow.
Right. You know, it's an interesting conversation because I've been in the IT space for a bit. You know this.
Yeah, sure.
And for let me say, for the uninitiated or people who don't know, you approached me somewhere in 2013, 2014.
Exactly.
I had this big book. I had introduction to web development and all.
Yeah.
And then we had to meet somewhere around Complex to have that conversation.
Yeah, sure.
At the time, I took for granted what tech was all about, and so that's how long I've been in it. Then I spent a little bit of time learning, all the proprietary things like Microsoft, CCNA, Oracle, and all.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got into the space for what now I'll call data literacy or tech literacy. By the time it was like IT training, that's the term for it. And then in 2015, I stopped. I was working at Emerging Trees. Trees, really cool place. Folks should check it out if they are, it's an place where they take IT training. So in October 2015, I stopped working because I needed to think around the things I was doing. And I spent like 2 years doing nothing.
Wow.
Right.
Nice.
And then in 2017, I knew that I wanted to go into tech, but this time I had to look at what I had gained over the years. And I figured, something, since I had done Oracle and Oracle had something to do with database management, I just figured it had to be around that.
Yeah.
And so I kept Googling and I was seeing big data and stuff, and I figured, this is what I want to do. Then one time I saw data science and it just sounded really sexy.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's what I was going to do. So again, now you find out what you want to do, but now you have to pick up the skills.
Yes.
And so at the time, I figured, okay, I have to learn Python. Python programming was the language, and I just wanted to learn. But it was really difficult learning alone. I had my neighbor who always used to come and gist me about what being a tech bro is about, and it sounded, again, really sexy, and I was like, I was going to do this. So I recall there was a day I was going to cut my hair. I think it was March 2018. And then I was just there gisting. Then Banana Complex was still, there. And then two guys just passed. One had Python on his shirt, and the other one had CoLab on his shirt. And I just saw them. I just approached them, and I was like, hey guys, sorry, any of you know Python? And they just go, one of them, the older folk, just said, yeah, I do. I know Python. And I was like, okay, I'm struggling to, learn. And they were like, why don't you come to our community? And then I said, where is that? He said CoLab. And that was the second time I was hearing CoLab. I was like, oh, really? And so that was how I had to now chill, because for the most part I was unemployed and I was checking my cash all the time. So I just basically went there in April, checked it out. Then May 7, 2018, I paid my first subscription, because it has a subscription kind of like package there.
Yeah.
And that was it. So at the time, the older folk, his name is Robert John, who's, I think, is one of the best data scientists in the world. And you can check him out too. He wasn't in the country, so he traveled to the US for an event, for a tech event, which is something I'm now used to doing, basically. And when he came back, we now had this real interesting conversation where he goes, okay, let's look at Python on one side, let's look at development on one side and research on one side. What jumps at you? And I'm like, research. Then he said that maybe you want to do Python for data science, and then that's why I just kept looking at it, and I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted to do. And so that's where the main.
But what inspired you to go into the educational side of data science?
Wow. So normally when you're learning, right, and that's one part that I'm really grateful for CoLab is we always had this whole thing about trying to learn, and then we try to learn informally, like peer-to-peer learning.
Okay.
And see me trying to learn Python, and it's really difficult, but every day I'm sitting through it and all.
I mean, it's quite tough sometimes.
It is. It's the learning curve is steep.
Wow.
Right. So I remember we had this meetup in 2018, I think. So at that time, Sanusi Ismaila, who's the founder of CoLab, would host meetups and just be in touch with the community and stuff. So he said something because there's this guy Mudia Maswen, who is a product designer. I was telling you before this show that I think he's one of the best product designers in the world. He was into data science.
Okay.
Then gradually he moved. He got into product design because we found out that he was really good at designing stuff and all. And we're like, why don't you jump on this? So, but I noticed that every time people came into data science, they just basically moved out and were trying to search for something simpler, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So then one time Sanusi now jumped and said, well, the thing is, there are lots of fundamentals to be picked up. So that's why when people don't pick these fundamentals, they just want to look for something they can jump in easily.
Yeah.
And that's when it hit me. Oh, fundamentals. And for me, it was like a turning point for me in my learning, my learning journey. So I started to say, okay, what are the fundamentals? Statistics, Python, data analytics, and all that. Then I just realized, wait, people are running away from this because they don't have fundamentals
in these areas.
So I think that's an opportunity. But I never thought of it that way. Then the pandemic now happened.
Yeah.
Then I read a book. So there are lots of things. The story is massive and it's really crazy. But I took this I call it one of the best trips I've had in my life. I think it was November 19th. I took a trip to Zaria with Sanusi Ismaila, and like that dude, right? That dude, like, I feel like his brain should be taken out of his head when he passes on, like in future, and stored, and we find ways to like extract what's in it, because he kind of has so many things coming up. So we're just on the trip, and he just kept asking me, "Oh, how's my journey going?" And I'm like, and it's kind of tough. And he just says, "You need to try out a lot of things, like to test you. For instance, you need to change your mindset around how you're learning stuff. You also need to pick up a lot of he called it like values. Read books, check your days, like, check your time, look to the future. Understand that, your competition is the world, not just Nigeria or Kaduna State." And so, like, by this January 2020, I decided I was going to try that. So I was going to read a book and all that. And so it was in one of the books I was reading that I came across something, a book called Peak Performance, and in it, I found out something called doing stuff that transcends you.
Nice.
And that's when I figured, what, just maybe I'll just start teaching the whole of Africa data science.
Wow.
So that was just what started this whole movement.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, from what you mentioned so far,
right,
like, you need to know statistics, you need to know Python.
Yeah.
Or what are some of the key skills that you need to develop before you even dive into data science? Like a must-have.
I mean, right, on a normal, right, I'll probably start going statistics, Python. But I think there's more to some kind of human skills people need to pick up. Like they are, like, I call them values. For instance, there's a value called learning how to learn.
Yeah.
It's huge, right?
Yeah.
For instance, there's an intersection in everything we do. Like, if I was to think of anything, I'll think like phones. There's an intersection in phones, tablets, laptops, there's an intersection. There's a way you use all of them. They cut across.
Yes.
There's something, I don't know if it's a general term, but for me, I picked it up when reading books called structural analysis, which is you can pick up an idea and then it cuts across a lot of things.
Yeah.
But how to do that is really huge. So if you're going to learn stuff, that's one thing you need to pick up so that you don't get so overwhelmed learning one thing and your mind is thinking, what about 1 million other things I have to learn? So while you're learning this, you're saying, I'm having a foundation for how I'm learning, and it's going to cut across a bunch of other things, so you're not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
There are values like creativity, responsibility, relationships, honesty, patience. That's mad. There are values like creativity, community. These things are huge values that people need to have when trying to learn, so that they see these things from like 5-10 years rather than in the next 3 months.
Yeah, and there's something you mentioned about the fact that when people start learning stuffs like data science, for example, and they realize it's quite difficult, they gradually shy away from it to look for something easier. And I believe this is something that happens across different like careers in tech. Do you feel this is one of the reasons why we have like less experienced techies around?
I mean, that conversation is huge.
Yeah.
But if I have to put them in buckets, right? The first bucket I would say about learning and running away from stuff is the mindset we bring into it. There's something called the beginner's mindset, and I think it's missing in the way we learn stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Every time we want to learn something new, everybody is thinking about a short period and then payment.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a problem. So with that, people are not really interested in picking up fundamentals. And fundamentals are the building blocks of complicated stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so we kind of like, we disregard it, we take it for granted. So when someone jumps into a space, you need to like, first of all, say, I don't know anything. Yeah. Some of us arrive with deeply held beliefs like, I mean, this thing, I've been doing it for a bit, so I should know. I hear this a lot from people who say, but I'm smart, why don't I get this? And I'm like, no, but that's not how you view it. You just view it like it's an uncharted territory and you're going in and you have to be careful and you have to also look at everything you see with that, an open mind. Mm-hmm. And I think for one bucket, that's one of the reasons why a lot of people, we don't have really experienced folks in it. Because what's experience? Experience is you sticking around so long in stuff that you get so used to it that a lot of the things you've done it before.
Yeah.
And so when someone says, hey, come on, let's do a podcast. And you started off, like doing stuff around podcast. You stayed so long that one time they gave you a shot, because a shot will always come out. Mm-hmm. And then you say, okay, guys, sit this way. It's experience.
Yeah.
But if you don't stay that long in it, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, you're not.
So it's the mindset you bring into it. Second is our educational system. Mm-hmm. I kind of feel like our educational system, puts a lot of people in a box about how things should be. So you see, we kind of went to school 4-5 years and thought that when we come out, it's going to be a job for us. Mm-hmm. Only to come out and they're telling you employability is a thing. It's a problem.
Yeah.
That means while we are in school, we're not picking up other skill sets. Yeah. Other soft skills are going to boost us.
Yeah. I
mean, I have conversations with a ton of people who want to say want to do stuff or want to join our talent pipeline at CoLab, which a lot, we did a lot with interns and people doing their internships. And I'm like, always like, so what are you doing? And everybody always goes first, I'm an undergraduate of data science.
That's the only thing.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, I mean, like, what are you actually doing? What are you learning on the side? And they were like, nothing.
What other skills do you have?
And, when they say nothing, you need to see the look on their face like, nothing.
Like what do you expect?
Why are you expecting me to know, right? But that's where the problem is. Like, we're not learning stuff. We just say, it is cool. And without that, nothing. We are just there. And then there's also, and that's one bucket.
Yeah.
Another bucket is people don't really think they can do like 3, 4, 5 things at the same time. So folks think, everything has to be one point. I'm doing this and I'm doing this alone.
And I think it goes around the stuff people say, something like when you try to master multiple trades, you become like jack of all trades. So I think that mindset kind of messes with our thinking.
I mean, it's different. I think it's different for what I'm saying. For instance, I have work to do, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm here having this podcast. Why? Because I know I have work, but I can always give. Once you say, oh, you can do this, I have a structure to how I do stuff. So I have to put that structure in.
Yeah.
That's one. And I feel like because we don't have a long-term, we don't have a long-term outlook on how we learn stuff, we don't know that we can break things into 4 parts and be doing them one step at a time, because it's like a long-term goal, right?
Yeah.
So you're playing the long game. So that's where, for the most part, people don't think. So it's not basically mastering 101 things. That's why I talked about learning how to learn.
Yeah.
Say, you see a lot of university students, they say, oh, my exams are coming up. Once their exams are coming up, they shut down
every other thing.
You know what I mean? And you're thinking, okay, hold on. Your exams are coming up, but you could have structured the way you're taking your revisions and all.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if you give every hour a job, then that means my exams are coming up from, say, 8 or from, say, 11 to 1. I'm going to do some revisions. I take notes because I take notes and all. Mm-hmm. So you have taken notes, so you have where to go back to.
Yeah.
So by maybe 1, you take a break. Then you look at, I'm learning software engineering, and I'm doing introduction to HTML. So I just take a little, I read up a little bit on HTML, divs and all that, and I just set it up. But my mind has that I want to be this software engineer in the next 5, 6 years. So I keep thinking of problems around it.
Yeah.
So maybe by evening time, you take another thing, like say one other stuff. But you just have 3 things going on, but you've broken them down, and you know that in the next 5 years, you have somewhere you're going to.
So basically, you're talking about planning.
Yeah,
you just need to be good at planning.
Yeah, there's this guy called, which I call him my mentor. Like, it would be like one of the greatest things. His name is Calvin Newport.
Yeah.
Right. He's an author of Deep Work.
Yeah.
So Good You Can't Be Ignored. He did a lot of high school books, like How to Be a high school superstar and stuff. And I listened to his podcast too.
Yeah.
It's called Deep Questions.
Nice.
And he has this thing about capture, configure, and control. Right? Mm-hmm. So you have to try and capture what you want to do in a day. Then you try to do some level of configuration around, okay, if this is what I'm going to do, this is how I intend to do it. And you have to have like a notepad to that's the capture tool, so to speak. Then there's controlling what you're doing so that it doesn't get out of hand.
Yeah. Something
of that nature. So it's like that, and there has to be some level of deliberate practice, which is, there's this guy called Anders Ericsson. He's like a proponent of deliberate practice, and you just put yourself in a state, again, based on a lot of books I've read, there's a state of flow, and so when you put yourself in a state of flow, you kind of like break away the distractions that are existing. So you give yourself an hour and you learn stuff, and you learn it really well. Then after that hour, you let in the distractions again. Yeah. But every time you're going to learn, you put yourself in that state.
Nice. What are the career opportunities in data science?
So there are lots. For a start, data literacy is a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Organizations are trying to build data infrastructure, and they need people who are data literate. And data literacy might sound like a very simple stuff, but it means a lot of things. There are lots of buckets to look at it from. First off, if you were to start like your company right now, and you're like, what's the data literate person I'm going to bring? You need people who are basically collecting information from all the stuff you guys do, your day-to-day activities, all the clients you meet, their biodata, certain information that it's really important for you to create a pattern around it. And you also have to have an infrastructure that is going to collect this information and obviously push it forward. And it's such a huge opportunity. A lot of people don't see it now, but you go back in time and you find out that we've been collecting data. Organizations have been collecting data. There's this organization called NOAA. They collect weather data. They have weather data since 1800.
Wow.
Classic stuff.
Nice.
You know what I mean? So it's huge. Then there's like areas like education, sanitation. If you take a look at SDG goals, you see a lot of them. There are lots of things that folks can pick up from it. Then Sub-Saharan Africa is a hotbed for data science because first, we're like the youngest continent. This I know. Nigeria's median age, and I say median. When I mean median, I mean 50% of the population. They're 17 years old.
Oh.
So very young folks.
Yeah.
Right. So that means, and I say this statement I just made is basically a data analyst statement. Like, so it's analysis I'm dropping, right? So there's so many opportunities. We have banks. Banks have that your bank knows more than your wife knows about you. You know that.
Exactly.
So I want you to be sure about that. They know your spending pattern. They know what you spend your money on, how you use your cards, and also that banks, fintechs, and all that.
Yeah.
So these are patterns, and people need to, the idea of putting them in clusters and then looking for who to push campaigns towards and all, it's a huge thing. So there's finance, there's telecommunication, there's manufacturing, there's transportation, everything around us. But data literacy is such a huge place because here in Africa, we're growing everything. We're just like the manure, and everybody has to plant stuff on it. So it's really huge in this aspect.
So just like if somebody, for example, should learn how to write code, for example, they have this thought in mind that someday, if they are that good enough, they could work for maybe companies like Google and all that. Now, if I'm learning data science, where are some of the, what kind of opportunities am I looking at? Like, what kind of companies, organizations would I be looking at working for if I'm good enough?
So I think the first way people should look at it is what kind of problems exist in the world. Not basically, I always tell my students or people that I come across that think of data science as, you're trying to solve problems instead of thinking of the organization or the tool itself. Because there's this book I'm reading saying, seeing what is next. They say if you can take a peek at what organizations spend their monies on, then you can know the problems you're trying to solve. And if there are folks who are really interested in building their skill sets, they should think about problems first. So first off, what are the problems that exist in the world, and how would you do you think around solving them? That's what comes first before you now say, how am I going to use data science to solve them? So if you think of the problems are plenty.
A lot.
So Google is trying to solve tons of problems. So how do you think around such problems? Right? CoLab is trying to solve tons of problems. You are trying to solve tons of problems. How do we look around these problems, and what are these problems? Then now, how do we apply data science techniques to it? If you think of everything you're trying to do in terms of writing code as the problem you're trying to solve, then the opportunities are so much. But if you think of it so much about the code you're writing, then you're minimizing everything. So say, for instance, the banking system in Nigeria has to, push, there has to be financial inclusion because, just a tiny percentage of the Nigerian population are using financial services.
Okay,
It is not the tiny percentage of Nigerians a lot of Nigerians are financially underserved. And I know everybody like, what's underserved? A lot of us just use our banks to just put money in and bring it out. If I ask folks, even in the studio, how many of you have used your cards to get loans? People are going to be like, So that means there's so many opportunities. How do you take all these hundreds of millions of Nigerians from where they are into the banking system? That's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I understand.
You get me? So when you're viewing things that way, you start to see the opportunities and you start to ask, wait, is this company a data-driven company?
Wow.
Oh, then I think I need to build on that. So if you look at it that way, then you see there's a lot. Mm-hmm.
So basically what you're trying to say is the opportunity lies in whether a company is a data-driven company.
Not necessarily. Every company is going to eventually be a data-driven company, whether they like it or yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, but the question is you who's looking for where to put yourself to work.
Yeah.
What you should be looking at is what are the problems of the world? Finance, education, healthcare, sanitation, these are different areas. Manufacturing, telecommunication, transportation. What are the problems of the world?
Yeah.
And how do I think around this? Before you now say, okay, I want to go into data science, hoping I'll use data science to solve this.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, transportation, supply chain is huge. Like, a lot of us buy things online. How do we think these things come to us?
Yeah.
It's a huge distance. So, first off, all you have to do is think of problems first. Then when you figure an area where you think, oh, that's a huge problem area, then you start to do data science towards that area, because they're collecting data, they're collecting information, they're collecting stuff every day, and somebody has to analyze this data.
Yeah. So how do you see AI and machine learning like kind of coming into the future of data science, basically?
So, I mean, it's what we have done over the past 50 years is we need time to think and do other things.
Yeah.
So we invest in technologies to take away something called the drudgery, the things that waste our time. That's what we are improving on. And that's what artificial intelligence and machine learning is trying to do.
Yeah.
For instance, if you look at something like the generative pre-trained transformers. I know I say this and a lot of people are like, what the hell is this guy saying? That's ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
If you look at that, you're thinking, okay, what's this doing? Think of the fact that I need to answer a question and I'll need to like go on Google to research it.
Yeah.
But then I just type it to a generative model and then it spits out what you should do in a broken down format. It kind of saves you that stress that you would have done.
Sure.
So that's basically what that area is doing. So which means it's improving on our productivity.
Yeah.
So that's what they are doing basically. But it's data collection and all.
Yeah.
So they're basically improving on our productivity. And I see it as there's so much opportunities that it's bringing.
Wow. And I think basically it's just like you mentioned, its ability to give you like the response you need is around the data it has been able to gather in the past.
The assets around it.
Yeah, so that means like the more data, the better.
You've spoken like a data scientist already, right?
Yeah.
You know, before when we look at data science models and machine learning models, they are discriminatory. They're saying, what is this? Is this A or B? Mm-hmm. Right? And now we're looking at, please, I need you to give me options around A and B, mm-hmm. or A or B. And then it starts to give you what people online have gone through, said, opinions. It gathers it. That's why a generative AI tool will always give you this warning that, look, sometimes what I say might be inaccurate. You know what I mean? So, but it's just opportunities for you to, you know, if you would have sifted through the billions and trillions of petabytes of data, they'll just give you an option. So such a like huge opportunity for us to keep developing. And it's mad the things we can do with them.
Wow. So do you think to be one of the most amazing data scientists out there, mm-hmm. knowing how to use or implement AI and machine learning would be like a plus for me?
Yeah, like, so it's not everybody that will get into that space, but it's to understand what it can do. Okay. For instance, if I asked randomly to folks and say, how do you think AI will help a woman living in the rural area? Mm-hmm. You know, first, if you have to start to think, imagine have you thought of somebody living in a rural area using a chat GPT of a sort that when she wants to buy Gary, she'll type how much is 1 mudu of Gary? If you typed 1 mudu of Gary in chat GPT, it's definitely going to not understand what that is.
Yeah, sure.
But imagine we have a way of having some of like an AI, a lightweight AI tool that can help.
That's coming down to our level.
Lightweight.
Yeah.
You get to see. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to build an AI or an LLM or anything. LLM are like large language models. They're like the guys that ChatGPT is sitting on, so to speak.
Wow. Yeah.
No, you just have to understand it. And that's where some of the things happen. A lot of the owners of businesses, like tech businesses, some of them, not a lot, so okay, let's say fairly amount of them don't know how to write code. But they understand the problems they solve. So because they understand that, they can tell you, this is what I expect this to do.
Yeah.
Because they have a sense of how it works. So people need to really, try to do is have a sense of how AI works from really an important or a problem-solving solution, not from a very, for the lack of better word, a pepper soup point of view, right? Let's think of it from maybe a medium to high-level thoughts. I'll give you an example, and this is not taking shots at anybody. Every time you hear stuff like blockchain,
yeah,
the first thing that comes to people's mind is cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
By the deep and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody thinks about the technology around decentralized way of doing stuff. That's where the whole thing is, right? Because we just run to one area and then leave the other area.
Yeah.
So that's how I always encourage people who are not even in that area just to read up about it and see what kind of problems do they solve. And then even if it makes you data literate, then that's huge. Yeah. Where you say, okay, in my organization, we have to find a way to collect important data.
Yeah.
While we're doing that, we're respecting people's privacy and we're doing it ethically.
Yeah.
Then you're already in the business.
So, like, basically, if I'm a newbie, like a complete beginner, no idea about data science, how much time should I give myself to be good at it and even start looking for opportunities to help companies gather data?
I think, again, of course, there are some basic things you need to learn, like statistics.
Yeah.
But again, when I say statistics, everybody just starts to have nightmares about their university days and secondary schools where they had to do statistics.
Yeah.
But what saves you that problem is Python. Because people are thinking problem-wise, they have thought, what's the best way to get people to learn statistics without the drudgery of writing the f of x or f of x
Those
equals to w plus, plus or bo plus w and all that. But what they want you to do is say that whole line of statistical formulas, here is a code for it. One, this whole line of formulas, here is just one line of code that will help you to solve the problem. But first, what was that line, that formula, what was it trying to solve in the first place?
Wow.
Okay, think of it this way. So again, how you learn is important.
Yeah.
So if you're a newbie, first of all, you have to think to yourself, let me understand the problems that data science is trying to solve.
Yeah.
It's important. If you can, jump in there.
So that should be your first step.
Yeah. Then when you now say, they're trying to solve this problem, then I think I want to do data science to solve this problem. It gives you a direction.
It's more of like having a vision of what you want to.
A roadmap.
Yeah.
I say, this is where I'm going to go. That's one. Then, of course, you have to pick these tools like Python. But again, when you're learning Python, I always encourage people, learn it. That's why if you check out my YouTube channel, you will see that I'm trying to teach you to learn Python, but at the same time, I'm also trying to teach you to understand the use cases. For instance, if I say create a variable, what does it mean? In a real sense, I'm saying pick up a container, which for every lay person, pick up a container, then I pick up a container, open it and put something inside and store it.
Yeah.
You see how that is?
Yeah.
Oh, so whatever is inside, if I put a name inside it, then that means that name is somebody's name and I can refer to somebody.
Yeah.
Know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's how you learn.
Yeah,
So
sure.
what I always advise folks who are starting out new is to have that mentality, have an open mind. Then now say, if I'm going to learn Python, I'm going to learn it this way. I shouldn't be learning it because I want my code to run, but I should be like, oh, this is what it means. This is what it means. So at a point, you now realize, okay, I'm moving forward. So at every point, you now know I'm learning this because I'm going somewhere.
Yeah.
So that helps you for the most part to start picking up stuff.
Basically, from what you just mentioned right now, having a roadmap of where you're going is a key thing if you want to learn data science. And I think it applies to every field.
Everything.
Like everything you want to learn. Having that roadmap, okay, I want to start from here and I want to get there. Then you build your learning around that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
I have to state this because I know a lot of folks who probably be in the comment section of this thing will probably be like, yeah, but there's a ton of roadmaps out there. and I understand that information overload that is mad.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get? So with that, what I'll always tell people is that, look, pick up one thing and focus on it. There's always this issue that, one, I want to do data science, but I don't know what exactly I'm going to learn. Should I learn Python? But, over there, they said you can pick up SQL. Oh, but over there's Excel. Oh, but over there's Power BI. Oh, should I try Tableau, or should I try Looker, or what should I try?
Mm-hmm.
You need to first create your own. With all these roadmaps, once you decide that there's a problem you want to solve, and now we have generative AI tools who will say, okay, this is where I want to go to. What should I do? Once it spits out anything for you, carry that in, write it down and keep it and say, this is me. And believe in it.
Yeah.
Instead of after like a week, you go again and say, oh, I saw an interview. And in that interview, one guy says he knows how to write Rust. Should I start learning Rust?
That's like random.
You have to focus. You know, we're in a distracted world right now.
Yeah, sure, we are.
You know, so how do you, this is me quoting like County Report. How do you get through, get focused in a distracted world? So I think that's important for people to pick.
So like in this part of the world, like Nigeria to be precise, let's go down to the north, for example, and then maybe you can enlighten us a bit around Nigeria generally. Like, what communities are out there that you think people should try to be part of if they really want to dive into data science?
CoLab.
First.
Imagine if I didn't mention CoLab, what the hell?
Yeah.
I mean, there are lots of communities. I'll use CoLab has this very fascinating way of getting people to get involved. First, community, social structure. This community and social structure have been with us before we were born.
Yeah.
If you go back to our villages, we are doing self-help projects, trying to clean up the place, having our own security and stuff. But imagine being in a hub and first of all, we're looking out for each other's development. And so that means there's always this person who has it going on in terms financially, and then there's always that one person who's smart, and there's always that one person who learns things really quickly, and see all of you come together like a team.
Yeah.
When I started at CoLab in 2018, I used to be broke a lot.
Wow.
Like crazy. Like, you see, we used to have people who would give us, who used to buy lunch for us. I swear, from Robert John, and this was just in my own small team. There was Robert John who would just up in the afternoon and just say, "Hey guys, let's go and eat." Or there's Ifeanyi who would be like, just pop up and, or in the weekends when, Sanusi will encourage, let's do downtime and let everybody just bring food and eat.
Wow.
And for a bit, these things, without knowing it, just helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there was always this. He was always like encouraging us to be accountability partners for each other. Like, what are you doing? What are you not doing? And then when you build this social structure, people can trust you. And so if you're broke, you have that one guy is a bro, and then you keep going, and before you know, a year has passed and you've been learning.
Yeah, sure. And I think one of the key things you mentioned accountability, and then having this network of people that you
Exactly.
can always reach out to know how far they've gone on the same stuff that you guys are learning. I think it's kind of a push that we all need, to
it's
achieve
important.
a lot.
It's you cannot be I can't say it can't be overestimated or overemphasized, rather, to have somebody like, it's funny how we might be having a meetup, right? And then somebody in the community will talk about when somebody was going through hell, and it was them they reached out to. And you look at this person and you're like, oh, this person went through hell too. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they needed somebody to either run to or talk to or break down to. It's massive. It's important. And so you those things are there, the skills you're pulling up there, but the human side is important. And I think that's one thing we bring our CoLab. We try to always emphasize people to be together and just, help. While we are the core part of the team is like working on the bigger things like that. But those people are part of the bigger things, just that there's trying to, have huge conversations around financial inclusion, startups, partnerships, and funding, which is not basically what the folks at this lower part are trying to think of. They're trying to think of learning and all that. So while we are over there, while this is over here, they should build these little connections. While on the other end, we are saying, look, once you become good at what you're doing, start helping other people.
Yeah.
So you see that we have the community, then all of a sudden we now have where we have classes going on, quote unquote. And this class is just an opportunity to engage and interact. So that's the kind of communities we have. That's CoLab. There are other places and it's not everybody that will do it the CoLab way, right?
Yeah, sure.
There are other communities. There's Greysoft, there's in Banawa, there's Kada City, there's Kada Hive, there's now Nexus. I mean, Kaduna State is already is a tech is a destination. It's gradually becoming that destination. There's eFix, there's 360 Mars. They're there. They're communities. All you have to do is come out and have a conversation. One thing I find really difficult is the kind of conversations we're having. We'd rather have, again, pepper soup conversations rather than, okay, where do I go and learn stuff from? So there are so many communities, and different communities offer different things. But I'll always advise people, have an open mind. It's always an important thing.
So if for people out there who are, maybe they might have listened to this podcast and be like, I really want to start from somewhere, what kind of resources would you recommend?
Books.
Well, let's start with your YouTube channel, because I'll drop it in the description.
No, definitely. I'm trying to be very modest here.
Yeah. Okay.
So you start with books. Of course, there are online resources.
Do you have like any specific title in mind that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, like for instance, if you want to learn Python, I think one book that I read that was classic is Python Crash Course. Okay. It was written by a teacher. Shout out to Eric Mattis, but it was written by him. That's always one. Second, if you're starting out in data science, then come and join CoLab's data science cohort. This is the 11th cohort. Is starting in October. Classic stuff. You engage and all, and then you learn, and then you see people you can help out. And we have different communities too for software engineering, blockchain, digital marketing, product design. All these are inspired by people who started off in CoLab and are now working, and they still try to make our space from their work and come and help people to learn and all that. So, but if you're starting out in terms of data science, just find a book, right? Or take a course, or you can start off with an online course on Coursera. One really cool thing.
Or Udemy, I guess.
Yeah. I say Coursera because Coursera has the opportunity to give you financial aid, which is free.
Yeah, sure.
So you just apply for it, and 2 weeks they'll let you know, and then you take your time and learn. But one thing I always advise people is live a distraction-free life. Jesus Christ, people are literally on their phones every day.
with social media mostly.
Man. And see, I like to throw this in. There's a lifestyle that we're living that does not encourage where you want to go to. And folks want to maintain that lifestyle, yet want to be at the rewarding side of value and stuff. And they don't mix. It's like oil and water. They don't mix.
It's like they are conflicting each other.
They're conflicting. Like you see, someone was telling me how she became, she's doing, she's a beautician. She's into makeup and stuff. And she said, she realized when she was starting the earliest part of the work she was doing, she was always at the studio where she was learning, and she would just sit there and just wait or learn. And then folks would be like, why are you always just sitting here? Let's go out now. And she was like, no, but I have to learn this stuff. She used to tell me that waiting in a studio was a value. So that because she figured that somebody who wants to come and do makeup or a service like that will come, but if she's not around, we'll not find her.
Sure, definitely.
And now she owns her own business, and she sits in her store, or she sits there and just be learning stuff, and then somebody will pop up. And so, but while others will just always go out and hope somebody will call them, right? Yeah. So it's the same thing. It's like that's the whole structural analysis I'm saying. You want to learn stuff, you need to have a lifestyle that helps it.
Wow.
And that's the lifestyle I think is really difficult when it comes to tech. That's why everybody always like to say like tech folks are nerds and all that. It's just that for the most part, these guys just figured out that just sitting down and learning most of the time is important, and there's joy in it.
Yeah.
You know, you have to come to like boredom. If for you the instant boredom kicks in, my phone, then how are you going to sit through and learn something like a lambda function? Because with the instance it becomes boring, you just say,
you pick up your phone.
Let me find out what's trending on Twitter.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, 4 hours has passed.
Wow.
Yeah.
So basically, people love pleasure, basically. And learning comes with a lot of boredom or something.
Yeah, so here's how to look at it. Pleasure is I think is subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm learning every day to be able to, sit down, put my phone on flight mode, and then learn an idea for like an hour, 30 minutes.
Wow.
You take for granted the instant you hear that notification beep. Bing.
From your device.
Your head will just move. It's one of your guys. Bro, what's up, man? And then the instance you hear, bro, what's up, you might just say, push the phone aside. But as you're learning, you keep hearing, bro, what's up? In your head, it's like, how far, what's going on? Okay.
You pick it up.
I did, waiting day. That is it. That conversation is going. So, once you do that, secondly, because you have to learn for most of the time, you have to start creating the joy inside of it. That's why communities are huge.
Yeah.
When you guys sit together for 8 hours in a day, and inside you joke, inside you play games, but inside you learn. Yeah. Let that be your fun spot or safe space, so to speak. So let people need to, grow new kind of lifestyles that are driven towards the things that will reward them.
Yeah, what they're
so that imagine being in a bored state and you earn rewards for that.
Wow.
I mean that's massive.
Nice. You've said a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this episode,
mm-hmm.
Can you give us your own view of where you see data science, like in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years? Where do you see it?
I mean, there's always this popular saying that the future is now.
Yeah.
So I mean, data science is here. I like to look at Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a very interesting place for me. I like to look at Nigeria, which is my country, and I love it regardless. I like to look at Kaduna State.
Yeah.
It's massive. A lot has happened in Kaduna State, right?
Yes.
But there's a lot of things people take for granted. The kind of technological advancement mentally and intentionally that has happened in the past 8 years. I said something today on my WhatsApp status that in 2018, one dude walked into CoLab and was talking about a data science program that will happen in Kaduna. And then people will become data scientists from there. And then I was still used to having pepper soup conversation mindset. And so I was, instead of me asking him questions, I was just taking shots at him like, yeah. You know, I'll ask him questions like, do we have any data science instructor that's going to teach them that we are talking about? Or this. And I kind of saw him, he was so challenged in his own way, like he was trying to make sense of it. Meanwhile, my friend on the side, Demilade, who is an analytics engineer right now, was like, reaching out to him and saying, hey, so what's the plan? What's the... And the guy was now, so I didn't really care. By 2020, right, it has started. Like they were recruiting right after the pandemic. They started to the lockdown. They started to recruit for data science instructors. They were doing stuff called Data Science for Good. The company's called NFTI, huge company. Shout out to they are the ones that run Click on Kaduna Data Science Fellowship, Click on Kaduna Digital Learning Program. They connect with the Kaduna State Bureau of Statistics. They have a team of really, really cool people, right? And right now they are currently having the third cohort of Data Science Fellowship. And I'm proud to have been part of the first two cohorts.
Wow.
And these guys came in 2020, and the guy was just in 2018. One of their program guys was just having this very, Now in 2020, by the time he reached out to Demilade was already in Abuja, but Demilade now sent me a message via my friend BK and was like, reach out to these guys. And I saw the guy. Funny thing, luckily for me, he did not recognize, he didn't remember the conversation.
Yeah.
But then Kaduna State had a data revolution plan. I never even knew that.
Oh.
If you go to the streets or to the roads, you find CCTV cameras.
Yes.
They're collecting data. There's something called Office of Resilience. I think it's in KSTA. Huge technological stuff. It's happening, right?
Yeah.
But most times we don't know. During the lockdown, that happened, that a lot of people were mad at the governor for, right?
Yeah.
It was in 2021 or 2020 that I heard from the Commissioner of Health why that had to happen. And it wasn't like, anybody hated anybody. It was just a data-driven decision because the health partners that Kaduna State had in Europe and all, they were going through a whole lot during the COVID. And so they looked at the data that we had shared with them and said, look, if we have this level of health care in Europe and we are struggling with the COVID, what happens
much more
here? So I think you guys should take a preemptive move and then do something that will save you in future. Looking back, we are glad that, the COVID didn't really knock us like it knocked other part of the world. But that was data-driven.
Yeah.
And it's taken for granted when these conversations are had. People would rather be like, oh, there was some kind of a wickedness going on. I don't want to go into those areas, but there was a decision being made based on data. Nice. It's huge to have a state talk about that. And that's Kaduna State. This thing, and let not say, I'm not politically affiliated with anybody. I'm just like, this current governor he signed an executive order, which means for the next 4 years, we are going to push a lot of conversations around financial inclusion. And financial inclusion is huge. We have to get people to use financial services. We have to get a lot of people in Kaduna State to have financial history. Because with financial history comes your ability to use loan facilities, your ability to get money to do businesses. You cannot walk into a bank and ask for a financial service and they look at your financial history 0. How do you get people into these areas? And to have a governor sign that means that governor is seeing that tech side of things.
Yeah.
So we're at a place here. Something is happening here. But it's just the conversations you put yourself to. Yeah. So I'll encourage people to really pay attention. They should, anything that has to do with ICT, they should look around this ICT stuff going on in Kaduna State.
Yeah.
You know, there's the special advisor on ICT is such a proactive dude. He's everywhere having conversations around tech. So
wow.
It's huge.
So what's your final advice to anyone out there?
Man, the advice is like 452 million, but you have to have an open mind.
Okay.
You know, when you want to learn, there's something called the beginner's mindset.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart because a lot of people be like, come to learn stuff and they just tell you, I know this, so I don't need to know this. But that's where the problem starts, because the instant you tell yourself, I know something, then you're already on a high, you started on a high note. To be really hard for you to now sing on a low note because you think it is demeaning, but it's just part of the ride. I'll advise people to structure their lifestyles. The way you use social media, the way you use all these things, you need to, use it with a level of discipline. Yeah. It takes away your time, and time is precious and it's crazy. And one of the best times, there's this saying that one of the best times to do stuff is 10 years from now. The next best time is now.
Yeah.
So if you want to get into tech, start now. Join a community. Offer yourself as a service instead of having the entitlement that somebody has to do stuff for you
or pay you.
You get me?
Yeah.
That's on. I tell you, see, advice is reached like 1 million in 2018, and I like to say this. This is confession and saying, in 2018, we had a meetup at CoLab, and Sanusi said something. Sanusi said, it's not everything that somebody says, please do for me, that you ask them to pay you. And I used to be broke a lot. And I emailed the guy like 14 times. I said, who is this guy? But that's value.
Yeah.
I started our official data science cohort in 2020. And it's funny, like I say this, and I'll say this on the record. Every tech cohort you see in CoLab, it's not because CoLab comes together for the most part to say we must have data science, we must have blockchain, we must have software engineering. No, it is down to the people who volunteer their time
for those stuffs.
Yeah. Right. For instance, someone told me the other day that CoLab seems data-driven. I mean, I'm the director of operations, so, and I've learned the idea of volunteering my time. It's you give, you get me to get.
Yes.
And so if you come into any space and everything you're thinking is who's going to give me, that's why a lot of people come and they say, where's the job in CoLab? Where's the job? But nobody sees you come out to do anything. And it's when you come out and offer yourself, that's when people will be like, oh, you do this. And then later, it's the same person that will say, do you know that guy that does data science?
And then an opportunity.
Yeah. Yes. That was how, like, Demilade had a conversation with the guys at NFTI. And boom. And when it was time, it was him they reached out to. The thing just looks, it's normal. They just reached out and say, bro, this is up. What's up? You've been learning data science for some years now. Can you tutor? And it's like, oh, I'm not around. Okay, try out these two guys. Yes. But how they have known. So, and at that time, I just started the data science cohort. And it started really small. I did this. And in the second cohort, I was like, oh, some people don't know Python. I think I have to start Python this way. And before I take the class, I have to learn. Because I was still learning. So I have to learn to teach others. But you know that which you teach others, that's the thing you master, right?
Yeah, sure.
And that was it. And that's why I realized that data literacy is massive. There's a world of teaching people, which is a thing. Imagine that you're teaching someone software engineering and you're fashioning it so that it looks like how it works at Google. Nice. It's a huge thing. So I just tell people to start structuring your life now that little or nothing is happening, so that when it becomes big, you have a structured lifestyle. You get me? So
Thanks a lot, Pablo.
No.
Really appreciate everything
No.
you've shared.
no, and yeah, and you can also follow my YouTube channel,
Sure.
Data
I'm going to
Science
share
and
it
Python with
on the
Pablo.
description.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Nice to have you around.
Yeah, thanks.
Alright.
Thanks. I enjoyed this.
And that concludes another episode of the Dixre Podcast. I hope you've learned a lot, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next episode. Don't forget to like, comment, share your thoughts. We'd like to know more about how the episode went for you. And don't forget to subscribe. See you on the next episode.